districts for
That's the
council.
old, that's the old.
Is this the old?
This up here on the screen.
Okay, that's the old, so you'll see, he'll show you what we had to do with those, and see they're not all contiguous, and I can let him talk about that. So you've got council districts, and then you've got commissioner districts. We're worried about council right now because of the population deviation. It was at 31.4% from census data. That's a pretty big variation in population. We were trying to bring that number down to as close to 10%. Now, just so you know, 10 years ago, there was not a redistrict, from what I can find, and it was at 18% 10 years ago when they did the census data in 2010, 2011. And it was at 18% deviation. So we've been away from that deviation for 10 years. Now we're here 10 years later, needing to look at this again, and we want to get it below 31.4.
So you're saying 10 years ago it was 18 and they didn't do anything?
Apparently, that's what's on the census data. I mean, I got that from the census data that said we were at 18% population deviation. And you know, Zach could probably,
I think 18's good.
18's not bad, but guess what? We got
so
it even
it's,
better. Sean got it even better.
And that's not, I don't believe that the as near as possible population is a statutory requirement. The contiguous compact for districts is that is a constitutional requirement for under the Equal Protection Clause. So everybody's vote is similarly counted basically. And I think basically the case law is where you get the 10% deviation. They say that that's generally what you want to shoot for. And if you're above that, you have to be able to show that you, first off, I think made a good faith effort to bring it as close as possible, but also that the basis for, and this is probably the more important piece, the basis for the deviation is not for an arbitrary or discriminatory purpose, which I think that, I don't know how the districts got to look as they do currently, but I think we've got probably a number of problems, both statutory and constitutional. So they have worked very hard, I think, to get it down to about as close as I think we think is possible, and kind of redrawn some of the districts so that they fit more within the statutory requirements.
So we went from 18% to 13%. Okay.
And it was, and then still it was at 31 after the whole thing was said and done. And it obviously shows we did it less than half of that. We dropped it down.
But
Sean did a great job.
As we stand today, we're 31% deviation.
Yes, right now.
So we're definitely way,
Better than we were.
we're definitely way better than we were. I mean, with this new proposal, if it were approved, but as we stand today, I think it would be risky, I think, for the county to not make some type of change, because the challenge would have a very good argument that, we're in violation of either a state statute or the Constitution.
Well, clarifying a challenge, you're saying that if for some reason a candidate lost and they wanted to go to court and say, I got screwed, and they'd go to court and say, well, the districts aren't correct, and there's not a big enough, there's too big of a deviation, and they could technically win.
So that is one possibility. I mean, any citizen can file.
Saying they vote for the wrong person, or that person should be in my district.
Well, think of it from the Equal Protection Clause piece, especially like one citizen in, let's say, Vienna Township, as it currently sits right now. Their individual vote could be considered to count less than an individual who's a voter in a less populous district. So even though the districts are larger physically, Vienna Township has, I believe, the highest population count. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the city of Scott.
So they would say, look, my vote has been devalued essentially, and I've been damaged by, because I haven't been given the same opportunity. My vote doesn't count as much as this person is voting in District 2, for instance. And they would file suit either under that or the statutory provisions. And the statutory provisions contain both an allotment for, if they were to win, attorney's fees that the county is responsible for, so we end up paying the plaintiff's attorney's fees if they win. We pay our own attorney's fees, and then the court would actually approve a entirely new plan that there's no guarantee that we would have any type of input on how the districts would look after that case. And I think that as it stands, it would be, I mean, I don't think I would be the one defending that case, but I think it would be difficult for an attorney to make a case that, since we have all the data, you know, in this last 10 years, it would be hard for us to say, well, we just wanted to keep it the same. I don't know what legitimate, state reason we would have at this point. That's kind of my concern. So I don't know if there's.
Well, I guess today, Wendy, today you're just showing us this again. Are you planning on having public hearings where the public, because you know as well as I do, they're gonna say, well, we didn't have an opportunity to say anything or hear it or see it or whatever, but I don't know if, down the road if that's an option or not.
What I understand, and I took notes at the AIC conference about re-precincting, there is public notice. You have to, if you're changing precincts, we have to have that public notice. Redistricting, and I will double check this, and I wanted to look again today because it doesn't say that we have to public notify about redistricting. That's all done because of the census data. That's not anything we have to do. We're just following the census data, but it does in fact affect our council districts because of the population. But to answer your question, if I understand, you're wanting to know, will we need to have a public notice on this decision?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure of that, but I'm just saying, would there be any, like it'd probably have to go to a commissioner's meeting or something to be approved or whatever.
That's correct.
And would, at that point, I guess it could be open for discussion.
It would be done via ordinance, and I think the stated purpose today is just to introduce you guys to the plan and get a feel for, because ultimately it is your all's decision.
Yeah.
Just to make that clear. But
Yeah,
it would pass like a regular ordinance. If it was introduced at a meeting, it would have to pass unanimously at that meeting for it to pass. If it didn't pass unanimously at that meeting, you would have to do a second meeting and a second reading.
Yeah.
So I would suggest the best course of action is it doesn't matter which plan you want to talk about, whether you want to keep it the same or adopt the proposal, which I would recommend. You would probably want to, Tammy, we would probably want to put it on the next meeting's agenda, which is November 29th, the rescheduled regular meeting, and then get it on for, if it didn't pass unanimously, it would carry over to the
I know
middle
we've
of
talked.
December.
I know we've talked about this when we were doing the precincts. How many bodies, how many people is this affecting?
As far as changing the Congress, Senate, and House,
No, as far as us moving districts around, how many citizens are going to be affected by us moving them from one council district to another council
so
district?
it's council changes. If we go with the council changes for districts, it'll be 5 different precincts that would include Jennings 5. We can show you those changes. It would be Lexington 2.
And so the precincts would not change, they
No.
would still be voting essentially in the same locations, I guess.
Yeah, but it's the person they'd be voting
But they would be
for.
voting for a different person.
Right. Yeah, there were 5 different precincts that would be changed to get to the equal population.
And I get all that, I mean, and quite honestly, I mean, outside of us three commissioners, and I mean, we can all say, well, our district line stops here or whatever, but everybody in the county votes for us, and
Right.
and I'm not saying that there's an issue in what is considered John's district, doesn't affect me, I mean, because it affects us all, I mean, so I understand the council, not the council at large, seats, I guess, are the ones that somebody
Yeah,
goes, well, I'm not gonna vote,
seats.
I'm not gonna be able to vote for that guy, but I'm gonna vote, there's still gonna be represented.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we
correctly, but-
check just for fun, I guess, the current elected officials for those districts, where they live, they won't have to buy new signs. So
Yeah.
they're, if they use last year's signs that say District 2 on them, they can still use, so
This
where they actually live and who, now, but they're gonna gain or lose
Some area.
a few of them. But,
They can lose or gain some voters.
what's that?
They can lose or gain some voters.
Exactly.
It's
It
just-
was,
They'll still be in the same district, so for running,
so
My
this
guess
is,
my guess is the public won't know the difference.
they won't know the difference.
this is what it looks like today. This is your county council districts. The green being District 2, the dark blue being District 1, the light blue District 3, and then District 4, Scottsburg, Vienna, all the Viennas right there. And so that's what it looks like today. And as she pointed out, Vienna, Vienna, the District 4 was the one that was throwing everything off. And so somehow you had to be able to lose something out of there and then start shifting stuff around. So, I mean, if you want, I can just go ahead and
Yeah.
just jump
Yeah.
forward. So,
And I think one of the
so,
difficulties.
you know, I looked at, when I first threw in the council districts by the precincts, and I was like, and as being exact, how did it get like that? That's kind of, so anyway, I started shifting precincts. It's kind of like the old game where you move the block around, you know,
Rubik's
there's a
Cube.
set amount of people in that, and somehow you gotta start shifting them around. And so I started shifting some stuff around, was staying in that had that 30%, and then finally had to go in and eat a piece of Vienna. And that's when I was able to get it down to 13%. 13%. And so this is the proposed, and that's what you've got the picture of there.
Cleans it up a lot.
One of the things through the rest of the counties that I've been helping with, and the attorneys, exactly as your attorney has pointed out, is that it to be compact in nature, you know, that it looks equally. And when we started throwing the precincts together, and I hit this one right here, I was like, that's beautiful. You know, and we got down as close as we could to 10%. And you don't have to be at 10%, like they said. It's just, that's kind of their target number there. And to show that you've made an improvement towards that, and by half.
Oh, yeah.
Well, to
So-
comment on the old maps where they wrapped around, there were several areas that they almost dissected themselves. They were just kind of held together
Yeah.
by a shoestring.
And that's
So
what
now
you-
District 4 looks like it's the only one that's held together in a couple of places,
Yeah.
shoestring-ish like, and then,
Yeah.
but that looks
City.
really good, I mean, as far as,
What's
And
a
I think-
little,
I
what's
think
a
one
little
of-
thing right there? Is that just something means?
That's out of
nothing?
county. That's out of county.
That
That's,
doesn't mean anything?
no, that's the highway. That's where a highway goes into.
I think one of the difficulties with that town, with that district in particular, is that that is the city.
the lines of
of
incorporation.
Scottsburg. Yeah,
and
so we
city.
can't, we're not altering those,
No.
because I think one of the difficult things that they have to do is basically they can't just cut where they want,
Mhm.
right? They have to find a precinct and actually move that precinct into
Into
a new
or out
district.
of.
Wouldn't that be the same thing in Austin?
Austin, you've got all of Jennings, he
Yeah.
moved all of Jennings
So
together.
they go back.
So it took up 5.
So
I mean, you couldn't alter Austin either though, could you? City limits.
you can't go in it, you can't break
Yeah.
inside of it, yeah.
And I'm trying to,
Yeah.
I'm thinking Austin is Jennings 1, 2, and 3.
Yes,
is that
correct. So the old district, it was, the old council, sorry. There we go. And so it, you know, it captured Austin, because that's all of Austin right there, but it kind of, you know, bounced around it, and like she said, it was, you know, a couple places where it jumps back and forth and grabs, and so when I just was looking at just the precincts themselves, and I thought, well, you know, why can't, let's see what happens if we just put all of, what were those, Jennings?
Jennings, huh?
Yeah, all the Jennings together. If we just put Jennings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 together, you know, how would that look? And that's when it really started making the numbers go better that direction. And so at that point, it just kind of looked more like a north, south, east, west. I mean, almost with the, or I guess not really north, south, east, west, but you've got a northwest and southwest and east, and then Scottsburg.
So we took the highest population, which was District 3, with those precincts, and then we took the lowest population, which was District 4. We did the math, and to come up with that deviation, you know, our target, you know, target range was about 6,096 for population, and we were trying to get as close to each district to that population and follow all the other guidelines,
So
be contiguous and
What were
compact.
the numbers you had? Yeah.
And I was actually
So,
wrong,
I have the
the
numbers for
population count,
Oh, that's
so the
the
constitutional
highest and
answer,
the lowest.
so it's,
So,
My chickens crap.
6,400, 6,400, 5,600, and 5,800. That's your populations. And that's total population, which is kind of frustrating thing, like on your side of it, you're all registered voters, is how you're all, you know, how they, and this is population, so it's not like those people are voters, that's just total population. And the only one thing that there's been some, you see that there, that little square block right in the middle, and is that piece has not been annexed into the city.
Boswell property, but Boswell is living on that property now. The parent, evidently, he came and filed and changed, but he would still be in the blue. If it's District 3, he'll still be in District 3. It just
Well, he
looks
was
like
in-
it's not.
he was in district, he's in the green district before.
Yeah. So before, back,
As far as who's that's affecting.
so the only thing that makes a difference for her is just that come January, when he goes to register, is just that which precinct is he registering, or which district is he registering for?
Well, actually, you're talking about Jim?
Uh-huh.
Well, when Jim ran last time, he was in Findlay 1 and in District 3. And that's what he ran as a councilman before, and that's what he'll run again in. I mean, it's not gonna change his district of that he ran in, because it's still gonna be the same.
Well, he has to live in this area 6 months before he runs, which it's still in the same district. So it
Yeah,
won't affect, like you're saying, it won't.
Yeah, it's not gonna
that.
affect him, because, you know,
That's true.
the biggest change I see is where District 3 again would go all the way across to the Jefferson County line, and now it's not doing that. Because actually, where I voted for, I was technically, council-wise, I voted for District 3 councilman,
District 3, huh?
where I lived.
Yeah, you're in Lexington, aren't you,
Yeah,
Mike?
but Lexington used to go all the way across, or District 3 used to go into Lexington, and it was really weird how it dropped down and took in, you know, Lexington. But now it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Right.
So I would be voting for a different councilman.
Right.
So that was another one where I looked at putting the Lexingtons all together,
Mhm.
instead of splitting the Lexingtons up, so you've got Lexington 1, 2, 3,
will all
all
be council
being
two.
the same county council district.
Yeah, they'll all be council two. And then the other change was Vienna 3. Their council would go to District 3 council. And then Vienna 6 will go from council District 2. They'll now be council District 3. So there were 5 council districts that would be affected if we go to this new districting map. There's 5 different counties. But again, it goes back to trying to get that population, equal population. The only deadline right now we have is December 31st is the deadline for the county executive to file ordinance with the clerk regarding new district boundaries for commissioners or county council, or to recertify existing boundaries pursuant to IC code. So I've got a couple sample ordinances that you've gotten, but some clerks' offices have done them all together in one ordinance. You can establish the districts if you choose to do that, and also recertify your commissioner districts. So those are the 2 that we'll need to decide, that you all can decide on for.
And the commissioner district is District 1, 2, and 3 is what you got on this map, right?
No, that's council.
Council.
Okay.
There are 2 maps, right, that's a good
Okay.
point, because here's your council commissioner. I should go give you one of these. But these didn't change, right, Sean?
No, nothing changed.
I put up on top there by each district, what precincts you currently have.
So it's basically the same.
And Mike's down here for District 2.
So nothing changed there.
Nothing changed there, did it? That would just be a recertified.
Okay. So it's really all, that's what we're here for, is the council, and
Yes.
I think they'd be happy with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it makes
I
more
mean, it's,
sense to,
that's better than somebody in
It's easier to
Lexington having
follow.
well, it's easy,
to vote
yeah.
somebody in Austin, or back and forth.
You
It
really
doesn't really-
represent more of the same, of a consistent area that way, because it, to me, people in Spicertown and people in Lexington, if that one wraps around like that,
It
it's like
does.
they've got different interests, they're in different spots, one's down River, one's down towards
Well,
Park,
it's
you know
your
what I'm saying?
issues, your
It's just,
issues.
I think you do better if you have an area that's more compact and well-defined, and that's what you deal with,
Yeah.
rather than trying to think of 3 or 4 different situations, I think.
And how does somebody
A lot
in
better.
Austin represent somebody in Lexington? There's just, that's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't, it
But back-
confuses voters too, probably.
It is
Why am I voting
confusing.
on that person?
Well, I mean, even me, I've been voting for somebody out in, way to go out here.
Yeah, because I got them laid over top of each other right here now, and that's a little difficult to see, but but like you're saying, they do match up a lot better, that the commissioners almost match up with the council, and like, there's one place that this district, you pull in a little bit on that one, and then, but that all being together like that.
I know 10 years ago, Pat Rigbard was always upset about that because it literally kept him from being a good candidate to run for council from Lexington. Because he got overcome by the Jennings area. He was always upset, he thought, it did.
And we can only make this change once every 10 years. So we don't change it now for stuff.
And there's only a certain time to do precincting too, which we've already passed that deadline, but it will come to an annexation next year. The city will have to annex that Austin piece before their 23 city election. That'll be something
That's what Josh was talking about, wasn't it?
Yes, and then he was just trying to get us to do it now while we're looking at all these changes, but it wasn't required.
I think by the time that we formally knew of that annexation, we were already past
Want to return?
the precinct, like you all had already certified that paper that we had signed and everything. you'd already sent
Saying we
everything
weren't
out.
gonna change
Yes,
anything,
yeah,
yeah.
so, and I don't believe that, and I understand his purpose was to kind of jump, to get ahead of it, because it's gonna happen. But at the moment, there's no one living on those properties, and
It's an easy fix though when it happens.
yes, and I understand his purpose.
I was
his-
working
his
with
main-
another
his reason.
county, sorry, and another attorney, and I had multiple maps that I was working all at once, and this one was still up on my screen. And he said, "Ooh, that's interesting." He said, "Who are they looking for?" And I was like, and that's exactly what he's saying. It would be an easy court case to bring up to make you waste time and money.
So there's a Vigo County case, I think, where a citizen did successfully challenge the redistricting plan that was put up by the commissioners. And honestly, it was not even as high a deviation as we have. It was a 3% deviation in that case, but the plan that the voter brought was able to get it within 0.4%. And the court said, well, they've got a better plan. So, you know, that's kind of, but I think the way that they have done it is, and if I understand the difficulty in it, it's that you have to move entire precincts. And because of the population changes in the last 10 years, it's just, we can't get it any closer than it is.
I think Vienna, if I understand that right, they were so equally distributed in the precincts that it was hard to pull one in or out
Yes.
without really skewing the population
Yes.
numbers.
Right.
So there was some difficulty because
Yeah.
sometimes it's equal is really great, but whenever you just need so many
Right.
and you can't break the precincts apart, then you're looking at other options to try to balance
Then you gotta
that
redraw
out.
precincts and then meet those
And you
boundary
don't wanna,
guidelines.
yeah,
And
and
then
we're
we'll have
past that,
600.
so, yeah.
I think when I was emailing her back and forth, when I had a spreadsheet up and I was dragging and pulling, and I said, I think, okay, well, I got to option F. I think we're good. I said, you know,
Yeah.
it didn't, I mean, it's not as easy as just putting the corners of the map up, or, I mean, of your puzzle first. Exactly what you're saying, it was really difficult because those numbers were so close. And then trying to find something that also, with your lines, where your precinct lines were, to make it not look like it was jumping over to another. And, you know, initially, I'm sure that 70 years ago, there was only one Jennings, and there was only one, you know, what that one is over there. But, and then they had to split them because they got over 2,000 population in them.
Well, this
Or-
looks so
or-
good to me, because that other one, you literally had to pull the map up so close to even decide, okay, which side of the road?
Which side of the road? Exactly.
Yeah,
What your ballot's
why
gonna
did the
look like.
councilman cross the road? But to get in another district, anyway. So yeah, this looks simple, makes sense to me, just visually. The other one didn't make sense visually. It looked like a hurricane to me swirling.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me visually. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. Sean did a great job. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for working on
Looks
those
awesome.
maps.
I mean, I think it looks really,
So
Simple.
legally,
Yeah.
you
And
think
very
this is the best option
I
we
think that
have?
is the best option at this point.
And we've never had it, but I mean, I could see somebody in the future, something legally challenging an election or something.
And I think that is,
Probably
I think
lawyer.
Lawyer.
I think the scenario that you described is probably the most likely type of challenge, if a challenge were to be brought. Because in general, I think, you know, the citizens, voters might not know exactly what is required or exactly how to bring a challenge, but a potential candidate is gonna understand that.
Well, it's just like you said, John said about Pat Bridge, or Pat Bridgewater. I could see a person in the past say, I'm representing this area around where I live, and now people north of Boston is voting for, I have to go over and convince them to vote for me, but they don't live in the area that I live in.
Well, in Pat's case, he was a councilman, and when that redistricting happened, he got him beat. And, but that's just the way the system works, it just,
You're talking about when they,
You remember?
I don't remember.
you're talking about when they moved District 3 down and took it all the way out to
Yeah.
Lexington.
Yeah. I don't know.
Does
All I
three
know,
use-
I know if you was in Lexington, you had to have a part of Austin also.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
It's
the
still
way-
that way, until we change this.
Yes, until this gets
Yeah.
amended.
And he was always kinda bitter about that. He was pretty popular over there.
Yeah.
Nobody
That was
knew
one of the
anything
things
about
that I was also looking at on this
I
too,
could see
was,
that being an issue.
Yeah.
in the future, you know, and that was something that, I think that was this field here. Yeah, this is a,
Yeah, the
this is a new
Austin
annexation that's came up, that they've annexed in, that the city will have that piece, and there's nothing on it right now, but,
Where's that at?
northeast.
Boo Road,
Yeah,
it's next, near, does Josh live next to?
Jack Morgan and Boo.
Yes.
Is it Jack Morgan and Boo?
Water
It's Boo
tower?
Road,
All the way out
I know,
there.
the address is,
Austin, right behind Austin Park, it's not that
I don't know the
far.
address.
Austin Park.
William Campbell, Ernest Hurt.
It's
That
Gooden's
down Boo Road.
property, it's
Yeah.
Gooden's
Yeah, and
farmland.
there's a little S right there.
Very good.
It's right.
Yeah, that's where Heinlei's
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything to do with the city limits of Austin or Scottsburg, it just has to do with the voting.
Right
Yeah,
now,
is. On the north or on the
but what I
south
was
side of the road.
thinking of was talking about 10 years from now, where is this gonna be? Hopefully,
Corners
Austin
up.
is going to, you know, expand to the northwest
Here's
there.
Austin, and then
And so at this point right now, it's two different county council districts. But if you go with this newer one, then that would all be the same county council district.
right now, if there was an election, that annexation would have a split ballot. Cause you would have city voters, and then you have county voters. And it's not, you know, that's what you want to avoid is a split ballot. Cause Josh said that it was a nightmare one year they didn't annex a property, and it became very confusing for the voters coming in, trying to figure out where they're supposed to vote based on that annexation. It was not done in the system. See, once we get permission, if you guys want to redistrict and do all this, they'll do a batch process through our voting system. We'll put everybody where they need to be, so all our ballots will be, you know,
But that annexation one.
And if we do nothing, it stays the same, which puts us in a very legal position.
You have to
Sounds like.
you have to recertify either way.
Right.
So it's either recertification stays the same or
Okay.
adopt a new. And obviously, I think we are recertifying the commission districts
Yeah.
as is, but
But they're not changed.
they're not changing.
Okay.
But the council districts, your options are
Sound like-
recertify or adopt a new plan. And this is the plan that, based upon their recommendation and my recommendation, is the most consistent with the legal requirements under Indiana law as well as federal.
I have a question about annexation. Did I just dream this up, or is it all annexations basically voluntary now? That you have to say, I want to be in the city, and of course it has to meet the criteria to touch, be contiguous, and that type of thing. But I don't think the city comes in
Talking about
and,
forced annexations by the city.
like, yeah, I don't think they allow those anymore, do they?
Unless you live in Charlestown.
Oh, you had one? Yeah, oh,
No, I'm
yeah.
just saying, I mean, Jeffersonville, I mean, they can do an eminent domain.
I think that there is I think that,
But that's not.
I think the answer to that, I cannot answer that question
Okay.
with any
I thought the public had a vote
firm
on it.
answer, but I believe that there was a change that made it more difficult for cities to
To
do
force
forced
annexation.
annexations at a minimum, if they're allowed still.
Cause being on
But I
the
do
property
think it-
side,
I
it's
do think it
voluntary.
takes, I do think even in a forced, I think it takes like a referendum almost of the residents.
Like, do you want to be part of the city or not be a part of the
Yes.
city?
Yes.
Okay. 'Cause I thought there was a switch
So I
at
think-
some point in time,
And
but
I think Jeffersonville, that annexation was like one of the last ones in the local area that I can recall, where it was essentially, I think it was enforced. Don't quote me on that.
I knew a person who owned a piece of that property and they lost the case. You know, I mean,
I know they're not automatically
Yeah.
updated in the precincts, we have to get an ordinance to do that, once it's.
I was drawing an annexation for DuBois County, and it went into a subdivision and grabbed one house. And I'm like, you know, that's the only person that wanted to be on city trash? They're like, no, it's the only person that's gonna be running for office down the road that wanted it, you know, but it was a volunteer, exactly. You know, they were the only ones that really wanted to be in the city limits. Nobody else wanted the extra taxes and utilities and.
And then that's my question on the property tax, I'm like, why do you wanna pay $1,
Exactly.
$1.50 more or 100? But sometimes it depends on what you are, as far as, are you a factory, are you this or that? It may change your fire rating, it may change some different things that make your life more simple
Right, your
on your
insurance may
side.
go down if
Yes.
you're on a city fire full-time versus a
So-
volunteer fire department.
Yeah, so there's some factors that depending on what you are,
Yeah.
you know, would determine whether you would voluntarily say, I wanna pay higher taxes.
Well, you all worked off hard on this, and I think you guys know better than I sure did, so.
It's
How's the
fun.
math that
I'm actually
I
shocked
Our
it
attorney
came out
agreed
that
with you,
well,
so, I mean, that's
considering how
good
they
enough for
looked
me.
before.
thought, I don't know if I can do this puzzle, Sean. Help me. Yeah, because I've never used the GIS system, so that's my weakness.
Is this something we need to vote on
So-
now, or?
The city annexations after June 30th, 2015, this clause applies. One of the following opposes the annexation. So if you have one of the following, at least 51% of the owners of the land in the territory proposed to be annexed file petitions with the court after the ordinance is adopted opposing it, or the owners of more than 60% in the assessed valuation of the land proposed in the territory file petitions to oppose the annexation.
There was no opposition. at all,
Yeah,
right? That's what-
I'm not, yeah, I'm talking about
Oh.
just the requirements to,
To me,
like, a legislative body can adopt an ordinance proposing an annexation, and then I believe that there's a process now for the citizens to then go in and file petitions in opposition, and it's a question of how many, either by total population citizens file in that territory, or doing it by assessed valuation. So I guess, I mean, you could have one person who technically owned,
yeah,
a lot of the property if he came in and said, I don't, I'm not gonna do this.
Well, years ago,
Yeah.
that's, the property where Walmart is right now was county, and, to the golf course was county, but then when they came in, the city wanted to annex it, but there was one piece of property out there that the lady said, I don't want to be in the city, and it's still not the city.
That's
So I think
right
they
here.
just, changed, I think they upped they changed the percentages on opposition, so I think it used to require,
uh-huh.
based on what I'm looking at,
Actually,
it required a higher percentage of people to come
Yeah.
in.
Midwest
Right there.
Gas is in the county, isn't
Is that the one? They're on the north
it? I think
side?
Midwest Gas is in the county.
There's a
Or
Walmart.
it's out 56.
Yeah, there's a Walmart there
Uh,
in that piece north.
Now, I know Don Boswell, yeah, there's a piece.
No, this is that one up by Walmart. That's one.
Yeah.
That didn't get.
There was a piece there that,
We're close to Walmart.
right
Ours is
there,
a dead end.
that strip, you just
That little
showed it.
strip right there that's
That's
gray.
Midwest Gas.
That right there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And actually, that property south of there that's Jack Rose's, all his property. What? That's all Funk's, Jim Funk's property.
So this annexation for Austin then is, has to be done by the city. The city has to
The
annex
city
it?
annexes,
And then
yeah,
do you-
they've adopted
They've got the
the
ordinance.
ordinance already, so then it gets filed with the
Clerk and
recorder,
auditor,
and clerk,
Mhm.
and,
state.
the state, and then
It's
the
effective
only thing that it
22.
changes, it won't change like
Three, I
the
think.
districts,
Yes.
it will just change, the precinct,
Precincts
I
for
believe.
for
Yeah.
that Jennings,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it won't change anything that we're doing here. It'll change something in the future as
It
far
won't
as.
change, yeah, it won't change anything that we've talked about today, but it will change, the precinct boundaries that you all already
Yeah.
approved, but we are allowed to do the precinct boundaries more often,
then.
way more often actually,
Okay.
than I believe you can do them annually, but depending on annexations.
So that's the,
It'll be a
The
difference between
square-
a city annexation and a county.
oh, wow. Wow.
Now,
If
that
they were
lost me, where's that at?
That's west, that's east of
East.
Hunley's Farm.
Okay,
Right in the S curve, right there on the.
Yeah,
road.
that Hunley's Farm's right there, that, there, where the grain bins
That
are.
grain bins right there.
And that little S curve with that county
Yeah.
that's right in there.
Wow.
So
I would've thought that'd been on the north side, or the south side.
so I'm still a little backward. They're wanting to annex that in, or am I?
They're
it's
already
annexed, it's
They've already
already
done
done,
it.
it's
It's
a
just
done
a
deal.
field.
But,
But if
will we
they're-
go back, well, the voters didn't have a choice in that? Or there is no voters there?
It's about the land at that point, landowners and
The
if they
land
wanna
is-
be in it or not. Cause you can, if you board the city's line of incorporation, I can say, I wanna be in the city. And then go down and,
That's what we did in
Yeah.
our property, we annexed our personal property, we were in the county back behind Walmart, the dead
Mhm.
end. That was all county by the golf course. We annexed into the city because of sewer, we needed to have sewer connection,
There's certain
because we
things,
belong.
amenities that the city
There's,
can
yeah,
give
there's,
you that's
there's
worth
Why,
it.
other things
why
that the
don't they want
annexation
that?
considers, so.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's in the
That's
best
not
interest.
Who
mine.
is it? And why did they want it?
It's still gated.
I mean, it's just farmland.
It
Yeah.
is, but I think there's plans eventually for
Well,
some kind of housing subdivision or something.
What'd you say? Yeah, well, that would have to make sense, yeah.
And then they can get
Let's see,
city sewer.
McIntosh must own.
They can run
I'm
city
gonna do a
sewer
guess.
lines. They have city trash and city
Well,
sewer.
that's probably true, huh?
They can have city trash and sewer and
Yeah.
electric and all
Yeah,
that. No, they'll have Jackson County RMC.
as long as you don't burn plastic.
I got everybody, I pay everybody on that.
Okay. Well, that actually makes sense, I suppose, if us had those plans,
You wanna know who owns it?
yeah. Well, I think I didn't realize that, but that makes sense now that I think about it.
Oh,
Isn't that property?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
And I
that,
think
when you mentioned
north
that,
of
I think
there,
you
I
used to have
think
a
there's
little
some
rental
McLean
property.
property north of there.
There used to be a little rental
Probably
property.
is.
Because I remember looking at that, I was like,
Yeah,
I think, is this McLean?
What, is that on
No. One of them, I remember
Is that
seeing,
on
I thought, what's the sheriff's region up here?
No, that doesn't connect Terry. Um,
Okay,
Now, I know this side of 256 North, they own some property through there, but Burley does, but Burley did, because he owns the backside of where the, no, I'm talking about on the north side of 256, where the park is, they own some property there.
But we won't
They're
ever
giving
have
to
a
the
split
park
county
system or selling to the park system
Or-
or something, but.
city, even with that annexation, because the line comes down. That precinct.
What would you want to look at, I'm sorry? The Austin one?
The proposal, like, we won't ever have a place where it splits them.
You talking about that, the one in Austin,
Yeah.
that northeast?
if there was an election right now, it would be a split ballot, because that
Yes.
annexation
Right
would be
now.
in the county.
But under the new
The
plan,
new
Right,
plan.
it will-
No, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it'll be in
Yeah.
the city.
that was
Yeah,
my
that's a
only,
good-
that's,
Is that
yeah.
Yeah, there was two county council, that line was a county council line.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it used to be one, everybody in that north.
I have no idea.
Same
Yeah,
here,
because Anthony and Greg's dad lived there by the park. So I think the family owned all that property. And it was, yeah.
That's why.
That's what it was.
My question is, there's a deadline December 25th to publish notice of precinct changes in the newspaper for public comment.
so go back
If
for a little
clear
while,
by
is
the
this something we
EPA
can vote on today, or?
Well, that's.
I don't think we can
That was
vote on it.
precinct,
We
so we don't need to
Yeah.
publish
bring
anything.
back,
No,
we bring
I
an
just wanna
ordinance
be
to our
sure I
next meeting on the
understand that.
29th and we vote there.
There's
Because
no
if you
public
guys are
hearings
okay
or
with
anything.
it, then you
Right
can
there.
tell them to prepare the ordinance.
29th we're out there.
Huh?
29th we're out there.
The morning.
No, that's the
Morning
morning,
before we leave.
at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're having a meeting
Oh,
to
I didn't know
replace
if
the
you had to
one
have
for
any
that
public
Wednesday.
hearings or anything. Or maybe this is it.
Is
On
it-
the 29th, we're having a meeting?
Yes,
Is that right?
at 10
Commissioners
o'clock,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that would be your first meeting, let's say, which is why we need to get this on right now, is because of the 31st deadline. In order to, I mean, we could call a special meeting to specifically address this issue again, but I think, and it just so happened to work out this way, that we'll have 2 regular meetings before our 31st deadline, for you all to either recertify both or recertify one and adopt a new council district, and we'll have enough time to get that, for me to prepare that ordinance, because I was one, I don't, we all obviously have like a draft of what it would look like, but without knowing exactly, I mean, I could do both, but that,
Yeah, I just wanna make sure the public knows that we're changing some stuff, so I just don't wanna be
well, I mean,
shocked
you
when.
can publish it if you'd like. I mean, I don't know that there's a legal requirement, but I don't know that there's a legal prohibition
But there's no public hearings or anything like that on it.
that I,
No, I don't think so, let me,
I
I'm
mean,
not
could we get
aware
something
of-
put in the paper that says, hey, there's gonna be some shifting of districts, so that people aren't just shell shocked and think, oh, you did that in the back door and dark of the night and.
Yeah, district, it's all because of the 2020 census data, there's nothing
get
that you
all that.
are,
I
and
mean, I
that's
get
what we
the
can
reasoning.
word, like you're saying.
But I just
you know.
think we just need to put it in the paper that, oh, here's what's gonna happen.
people have an active imagination.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then they won't understand it.
like what he's saying, I mean,
regardless
it
of-
makes it show that you're making the best effort to make it as constitutionally correct,
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah,
You're doing-
I
you're
get all
doing
that,
it.
I just know people think that.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Who are they
And I-
trying to get to run?
And quite honestly, I had the same comment when we lost a US representative and our state senator, and actually lost some of our, we didn't lose, but some of our county lost a state representative. So you wonder why Indianapolis was doing some of the stuff they're doing, and you wonder why, I know somebody can goes, oh, they cleaned that up, and by moving from, instead of having District 9, District 6, well, I kinda liked it because you had 2 people you could talk to.
Sure,
And you
sure.
had 2 voices that
Sure.
you were listening to instead of, one now, and then same thing with, them moving a, state rep down from Seymour down into our district, which, nobody really knows him, so,
so yeah, Chris is now gonna be Clark County.
yeah.
He's
Well, I've
not-
talked to him multiple times about it.
He's probably not happy, or is that part of it?
So we're gonna have a guy from Lawrenceburg that nobody even knows. It's gonna be our state senator, and
Who is it?
I don't see any notice
Chip
requirements. The
Fry,
only thing I see is that the
something.
clerk can call
You know,
a
when
special
we were
meeting.
talking about, having to move some of these over, and the only reason I asked her
I was reading
where
last weekend, too.
some of these current candidates or current office holders live was because another county that I'm working in with the clerk. And so she came up with a real good plan. We worked together and we moved some stuff and got some really good numbers. Her husband's a county council
Yeah,
member.
that makes it seem like.
And it was gonna be changing his
Two regular sessions.
district, and I said,
I mean, I.
did you
know-
print it on the sign? She goes, yeah. I said, well, he's going to buy new signs.
Yeah, and you can put, you can put on there.
Come on in.
Whatever it is.
It's open, come on in.
Yeah,
Now go on our
So here's,
website.
yeah,
yes, sir.
that's fine.
And then
What I do,
we
now.
do it
That's the
first
question I need to ask,
on
what
the
I do now.
29th.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Commissioner
It's
Spence?
all the men,
Council
it's,
Kennedy.
my bosses.
What are you doing, trouble?
Who, me?
Take your pick.
I want to make my new girlfriend.
Hey, you're off.
I'm very sorry, Denise, if that's the case,
My
yeah.
husband might have something to say about that.
Very helpful. Jeff was another storm.
That's
She's doing the paperwork for him.
Good deal.
We'll get them all, eventually. between us and the
I know you
move.
have to take advantage.
Amen. I second that. Can we just do this now?
Completely,
Nine.
Thank you. Sorry for the.
So I think if you wanted to publish something in the paper or just via the city's website or however you, I don't think that that's required.
I know it's not required, I'm just, or I'm
Yeah.
I'm not questioning that, I know how people are, if we change something, somebody's gonna throw up.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it, because I think it is, I think it's for the best, to square it off right, correctly, and people in Austin aren't being represented by somebody that's representing Lexington too, and I think it's correct. I just, I think we need to just be upfront and open and transparent and tell everybody here's what it is and why.
And here's why, yeah, that's exactly
Do you
right.
want them
Yeah.
to, do you guys wanna entertain that on the 29th and then the middle of December adopt? You wanna take it in those kind of steps, or you wanna look
I-
at adopting on the 29th?
I would have it for an ordinance to be introduced on the 29th. If it is adopted on the 29th, then it's
And so
adopted
be
on the
it.
29th.
Well,
The paper,
We have to call a vote on the 29th.
Okay,
That's
that's- okay,
So
try to figure out some,
how that vote
how do we
goes,
get
That's
it
what
in
I'm-
the
my
paper
decision.
between
and that's
now
what
and
I'm,
then?
that's what, and I don't mean that in a bad way, that's what I'm saying is, it might be a situation where we call for a vote, but then we don't vote. And then we say, we're just giving public record that
Well,
we're having an ordinance change here, and
so if it doesn't pass,
we get another reading.
we get, it has to pass on
I
the
get
first
it.
and second reading.
I get it.
So,
But we could pass it on the first reading, and if we get a bunch of disgruntled, citizens, we could deny it on the second
if there
reading,
was
which
not
it's not gonna
unanimity,
happen.
it would have to go to a second reading.
Yeah. I don't know, I think we get with Marty and have Marty put something in the paper, and if they don't see it, then,
That's totally fine.
And don't worry about the public bill times. Put
I
that,
wouldn't, no.
advertising that, cause we're not under a legal requirement to advertise
No, I
anything,
don't
so I don't
believe so.
worry about legal
So,
ads.
I just put
but
something on Facebook and.
You could have a section for public comment too. I mean, you could call a public hearing if you wanted to. I don't think it's required, but
Well, I just
people
don't wanna,
wanted to talk.
I wanna be open about it, so, I don't want anybody to think we're doing something that's shady.
Yeah, well, like I said, we got a meeting next Monday morning?
Yes,
I mean, that could be our public hearing, couldn't it?
Yes.
yes,
I mean, they could just advertise that.
Yep.
And if they
It'll be
want to
on the
come,
agenda.
we could do it
Yeah,
10,
just
15
make-
minutes before the ordinance.
and probably
Say-
nobody even talk about it,
Somebody
that'd be
won't
the
say.
end of it, but we fulfilled our personal requirements to
Yeah.
let the public know what's going on.
What I can try to do is get a proposed agenda, cause I don't think at this point in time, I've got a ton of items that's gonna be more standard stuff on that
Mhm.
meeting. So I can try to get that out on Tuesday on the website for the agenda for next Monday. It's got this in it, and then just call for public, reading and hearing of council precinct, or council district,
Redistricting plan,
redistricting, and then the ordinance number
You
underneath
could
it,
do
how's
that,
that?
and maybe that could be our first thing on the agenda, and you
Yes.
could just ask for any comments.
Yeah, and I just wanna
And
give
get it over
people,
with,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't care if anybody shows up, I just wanna make sure that people have the opportunity to know that, hey, we're doing something,
Yeah.
and this is the reasoning why we're doing it, and there's a legality reason, I mean, we have technically a constitutional authority to do it, and a reasoning to do it.
And
It's done every 10 years, whether we want it or not.
Like it or not,
This is
yeah.
Monday,
Like it or not.
Wednesdays, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then you'll have a meeting Monday. So it won't go, we'll just have to get it on the way.
Yeah,
And I will not be here on the 29th, I'm so sorry.
oh, yeah, skip
Is
out.
that gonna, I can give you all my homework notes.
When it starts getting all heated,
If
we
y'all are
just have
making
to leave.
decisions, I don't,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can leave anything for me. I
We throw all those hard questions as
have a
that.
small space in Tammy's office. I get a little,
I want to answer,
I'll
but I
give you one
can't.
drawer.
I get a little drawer.
well, I do have, the only thing I can think to help with that decision would be the ordinance.
I
And
have
they're doing
that.
it, yeah,
Yeah,
it's got both in here, council and commissioner all in
Yeah.
one, okay.
So that's a template.
So, So who's
We're good.
publishing it in the paper? You are, Tammy? Is that going in with what we're thinking about doing after?
She's saying the paper will be done.
It's too late to put it in the paper for Monday.
Right,
Because
okay.
I should have had it in last Friday, if there was gonna be
Yes.
public notice.
That's true.
Because it'll be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that the papers will be published, both papers, Herald and the Cartersville Times.
Gotcha.
So it's not gonna happen in the
Okay.
paper. I'll get my agenda out Tuesday and at least put the proposed on there and then put a couple of sections about this ordinance, very beginning of the agenda. We'll get it out on the web, and then if you guys get it, then share it on
Well,
Facebook.
actually,
'Cause
doesn't the Scott County Herald, and that's hard for me to get away from the Scott County Herald.
Yeah.
But, don't they have it like a internet type of thing? They put
They
news
might be
alerts and
able to,
stuff, they can put
yeah,
out something
share.
out there and say, hey, you know, just for FYI, you know.
The radio put it up too.
Yeah, I just want people to know that we're doing it, and I don't want somebody coming up with it, and quite honestly, it makes more sense, and quite honestly, the people in northwest side of Austin would probably be happy not voting for a guy in Lexington, I mean,
Yeah.
Once this district is decided and you guys have the ordinance, that is when, the state has said all I need to do is mark up our precinct key, which tells us Congress, House, Senate, Commissioner, and Council. I mark those up according to what you all decided, submit that to the state, they'll do a batch redistricting in our system. And I think that's all we need to do with them. There's no blocks, census blocks or maps that they need
okay.
with all that documentation, so it sounds like it'd be an easy step.
Sounds like a lot of work.
A lot of work,
Good thing it's only every 10 years.
thankfully.
So I guess the other part of this is that would each of those people, or those people that are, and it looks like 5 different changes,
Mhm.
would those people be notified by mail, or?
We will be sending out once this is all cleaned up, then we, voter registration office will send out notices to everybody. We haven't done that yet, because we could send it out now from Congress, but we didn't know how Congress was gonna affect, and
Yeah.
then they'd get another notice and go, well, now you're in this district, and they'd be all confused, so we waited and didn't send any notices right now.
But we are going to.
But we are going to,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
That
they
would
just
be
need to know who
nice.
their candidate's gonna be.
Yeah, and this has to be, yeah, exactly, the
not-
candidates start filing January 5th, and they'll need to know what district to file in.
But also, it's not necessarily where they're gonna vote, it's a matter of who their candidate's gonna be.
Is gonna be on their ballot,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
That's right.
All right, sounds good.
I think we're getting more and more clear on this.
Yeah.
It's a lot to dive into at first, there's a lot of layers.
And it doesn't look much like the old one.
No, it looks a lot better, I think, too.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's
if
good.
y'all have any other questions, if you think of anything else, let me know. I will CC everybody all at once, so we all have the same information. If there's anything else y'all need from us or Sean, he can send maps, readable maps.
Can you send us, all 3 commissioners, an email with this?
Yeah.
Because
I can do that.
there's times when I have a hard time understanding where my line is, technically, just to know when somebody calls me and not saying, well, I'm not your, this,
And if
know.
you go on the WTH,
Yeah,
County
That's brand new
GIS,
district.
and
You
hit a
can
layer,
share.
you
Yeah.
can look up council
Commissioner,
and commissioner
yeah.
districts as
Right.
well, and pull up the
Yeah.
map and look, hone in right on the road you're talking about.
Right.
If you want me to show you what that is, I will.
Okay.
And that's the one thing that we'll update, you know, if you decide to make these changes, then we have to change that, so come January 1, if somebody goes on, they do see where they're at. So they have that own capability to do that, but, yeah.
Sounds good.
And if you, and like I said, just like she said, it's on there, it's on the website, and you're all fortunate to have a county website. But for my counties who don't have a county website, we can comp you a map, you know, like I have here.
I didn't know
We'll do
there were
that too.
counties that didn't have a website, I thought they all had one. I just
Well,
thought
not
that
all
was-
of
I
us.
thought that was so common, that just,
Yeah, not all of us, so.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, no, but that's just one of the things before we had county websites online. What we did is, you know, Rex comped the commissioners and the attorneys this mapping software so that they had the
It's actually
capability
Wow.
to look that up.
So Sean, I'll send the maps to them, since I
Okay.
have their emails.
Yeah.
You guys want the commissioner map, you've got the council map. And I think I sent the census map, if you want that too.
Sounds good.
John,
So I
what he's
guess-
referring to
I
is.
guess our attorney will write up an ordinance for.
Do what?
What he's referring to is not our county website, but the
Oh.
WTH GIS website.
Okay.
They provide, not all counties put their GIS on.
Okay, I misunderstood. Thank
Y'all
you.
need Sean to be back here on the 29th to show a map again.
Wouldn't be bad, it wouldn't hurt if we want the public know what's going
Actually,
on.
I'm gonna get with, as I said earlier before the meeting, Andrew's supposed to be putting that TV up. So if
Be great.
you have it on a jump drive or something that we
Yeah.
just plug it in a computer and say, hey, here's
Yeah.
what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that'd be
Yep.
probably easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
because what we can do is we can make it in, basically it'll be in like a JPEG or just a picture. You say 2020, 2022.
And actually, he's supposed to have that up this
Yeah.
week or something, so.
Yeah.
The TV. Good.
And there's a computer that comes with it, so we'll be able to type something in, pull anything up, or whatever.
So you're gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna get them a jump.
Right on that.
Okay.
So anyway,
He
so anybody got
says
anything else on
HDMI.
that?
Figure out your input.
I was trying to type in Yellowstone, get it
No.
up there.
Well, we can watch the
Yeah.
episodes of Yellowstone during the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, what's, we got something to shop with the cop with, the sheriff, what's, I think we approved that or
yeah, so
talked
we're,
about
are
that.
we, did we do it as a second open session, or we just have it in the same meeting?
Same meeting.
Same, okay, so it's all noticed, so there's a annual program, Shop with a Cop, that's, I think run by the county every year, and,
Thank you.
Thank you.
it has
Thanks for all
been,
your hard work.
thank you all.
Yes, thanks a lot.
It has been explained to me that basically there is a method that, by which the sheriff's office accepts donations from the public.
Can't do that. Can you open that door?
Oh, yeah.
They can't shut the door.
The sheriff's office accepts donations from the public via a particular method, which I think at this point is online. The money comes in, it gets earmarked and put into a fund, and it can only be used for the stated purpose, which is the Shop with a Cop. But, and that money stays there and is used for that, and they have a way to account for that. Basically, though, they need the authority of the governing body to approve that program every year. So that's the only thing that they're asking for, is to give.
Okay,
that-
just the
But
approval.
mostly they need an account, right?
Do what?
They need an account.
They have an account. The-
They
the
have
mon-
their own account over there?
Yes, sir, yeah. It gets, the money gets earmarked, I think it goes into their,
I didn't know they had.
I mean, I don't
There-
mind doing it.
there
I don't
was-
know why we have to do it, but I'm okay with
I
it.
think it's a requirement under the agreement.
To have a
If they
shop-
set up
what
an
agreement?
individual fund,
I
Kinda
have
like what they did with the baby box.
I mean, I like what
let's say
they're doing, I
they
just
need
don't.
to, it needs to be, the commissioners need to
Got
approve
it.
a separate fund for donations for Shop with a
Okay.
Cop.
Well,
Then
that's
that's
what I
what
mean,
they-
they need an account over through you, don't they?
They
Yeah.
will need to account for those
Okay,
funds,
yeah.
and you have to approve them creating another donation fund. They have
Yeah,
one for
I got it.
canine, they have one for, we have the baby box for
Then I
EMS.
misstated this, Tammy knows way
Yeah,
more.
they don't need us to do a shop with a cop, they need you to have
They
an
need,
account.
you guys need to approve them establishing a fund
Yeah,
for
I'm
Shop with
okay
a
with
Cop.
that, yeah.
And then they can use it every,
I'll entertain a motion to,
I'll second it.
Yeah, I'll second, first, whatever, yeah.
Karina makes a motion, John seconds it, and I'll make that unanimous, so. I'll entertain well, if somebody's got anything else, somebody got anything?
Heck, no.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
John makes a motion, Randy seconds, I'll make it unanimous.